So it is 16 days of orange about women's rights and equality. But I have come about a different take on this, and it's based on equality. Equality should be based on the country. For example, in Namibia, there is a 50-50 parliament clause, right? Which I think is the highest in Africa. And when it comes to employment opportunities, the notion that women are disregarded for high-level jobs isn't so in Namibia. As a matter of fact, women who can live up to that potential are embraced. It's like they're shown off, like, look here, look at what this lady accomplished, so you can too. So we celebrate our women more in Africa in terms of job equality, and going down, men don't have the same opportunities due to social stigmas. For example, there is a presumption most of the time that a male nurse must be gay because being a nurse is for women. There is a presumption that a man working at a teller, he absolutely has no choice now. It's because he's hit some form of rock bottom. It's perceived as a woman's job, and it's perceived as such because the woman works as a teller, and then the man works somewhere and they make ends meet. Now, I haven't forgotten calling tellers the amount of tellers that are there in terms of employment as useless jobs, because the people don't get paid enough for their hours. They sit, they scan, and now with smartphones and the advancement of this technology, people will be able to actually check out their products while they're in stores, making the job of a teller redundant. Now, I'm not saying people that work as tellers are somehow low or anything, but what I'm saying is that there needs to be a transition in terms of what they do and some level of higher training, which most shops aren't obligated to do, and that's kind of bad. And men are presumed to be, a man should be, let's say, a teacher, very difficult job. You have this curriculum, and you have to ask them questions and set up exam papers based on this other paper that shows you how to set up exam papers, then you have to mark a lot based on another paper which shows you how the answers should be. I think the teaching profession needs more innovation. Like I said before, the relationship between the learners and the teachers in terms of learning cannot be completely curriculum based, because teachers are different, learners are also different, and the methods of learning have become different, and it's better to intercept those methods rather than be left behind again and end up at a point where passing rates are set on a low bar again, and teachers are blamed for not teaching properly, because the system in place probably doesn't reflect the conditions that the learners live in. And of course, stricter laws on teacher-learner relationships. If a teacher impregnates a learner, that teacher should be barred to never teach again, ever. It's a national disgrace, and it's a disgrace on the ministry having learners who have teachers as blessers or whatever they call them. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's appalling. Mature learners are different. Secondary school, no. Right? And like I was saying, men are presumed to become, let's say, teachers or laborers. The perception that if you are doing physical labor, then you're walking, is an ancient concept which is catching people off guard, because jobs are being lost because of automation and robots, and people are scared of this. Now you look up a car online, you look at what it does, you look at the reviews, then you go and buy it. So what does the salesman have to convince you about? Pricing, maybe. Are you getting a fair deal? So these are some of the things where the interception is really so undermined. In journalism, the same. A lot of major networks are actually moving towards social media because that's where the audience is going. And it's also because a lot of misinformation is spread by amateurs with their own ambitions, what they want to see, what they think they're doing justice or doing the right thing. And that's hurting the ethics of the profession, because there has to be ethical journalism. Sources need to be protected. And not all stories need a reveal. Right? So certain ethics are being thrown out the window, and they are hurting the industry because people are starting to mistrust journalists and journalism itself, and especially the big media companies are being scrutinized more because they seem to be a secondary source. It's like they get the story from somewhere and then they send in their people, but they are not the ones that broke the story. So, like I said, that's some of the obstacles, but I don't think they'll kill the profession because it will innovate, you know, as opposed to forcing people to your own website. Use the innovative tools that are there where people socially interact. And it's also important because it breaks out news faster, sometimes even before it reaches the television or before newspaper outlets get them. And that's one of the interesting things about it. And writing is also another. How do you write this story? Do you write it objectively without bias? Or do you have bias and you write it with bias? Because it's clear to see when someone is writing something or presenting something in a biased manner. And like GPS on CNN, I like that show a lot because when he starts, he gives his view, and when he gives his view, then when he does the interviews, you can see the objectivity. So you can see the professionalism that even if I as a person am opposed to certain things or would want certain things, here's the reality. So this was basically about gender equality, and I sort of flipped it and added some other elements. But getting back to the primary topic, in developing nations, the men are seen as the laborers and the women more the ones that take care of the household, right? So I guess that's where it might seem to so-called developed nations as a sense of unfairness. But do you want the woman in the field then and the men cooking? So we need to look at the realities and be honest about them. Should the husband pay his wife? Or should they live off their combined labor? So those are some of the things when I think of gender equality. Gender equality in Namibia is much, much better and fairer than it is in other African, European, and American states. There we've succeeded. It needs a lot more work. For example, girls need to be encouraged to aim higher. Um, Jobs that were previously seen as jobs for men, we have seen now a lot of young ladies doing those jobs or engaging in them because they see it as a challenge. But I think the playing field there can be leveled more um, by really making it less about biological strength, because men have bigger muscles and all of that, and have a system where there is a help from some form of automation so that it isn't as labor intensive when it comes to um, commercially marketed goods. So that's my take on that topic today.